The call came just before sunrise, when the world was quiet enough for hard decisions to echo. Timothy McGee stood in his kitchen, coffee growing cold in his hand, staring at the glowing screen of his phone. The message was brief, urgent, familiar. NCIS needs you. Now. He exhaled slowly, glancing over his shoulder. In the living room, Delilah was curled on the couch, half asleep, their twins sprawled nearby in a chaotic tangle of blankets and stuffed animals. The soft rhythm of their breathing filled the house, a fragile peace McGee had fought years to build. And now, once again, it was being threatened. The life he built. There was a time when McGee wouldn't have hesitated. A case, a mystery, a call from the team. That was everything. Back then, NCIS wasn't just his job. It was his life. Long nights, dangerous missions, adrenaline-fueled choices. He thrived on it. But that was before. Before Delilah. Before the twins. Before the quiet realization that life wasn't measured in solved cases, but in moments missed. He had promised himself things would be different. No more disappearing without warning. No more choosing danger over dinner. No more letting the job take everything. And yet, the phone buzzed again. Priority 1. We need you in the field. The case that changed everything. By the time McGee arrived at NCIS headquarters, the tension in the air was unmistakable. Agents moved quickly, voices low, urgency in every step. Screens flickered with classified data. Something big was happening. Something bad. "You're late," Torres muttered, though there was no real bite in his voice. "I almost didn't come," McGee replied honestly. That got a reaction. Parker stepped forward, his expression serious. "We wouldn't have called if it wasn't critical." McGee nodded. "What do we have?" Knight brought up the file. "A cyber-terrorist group. They've breached multiple military systems." "We think they're planning something massive." "How massive?" McGee asked. Parker didn't hesitate. "City level." The words landed heavy. McGee felt that old pull, the one that had guided him through countless cases. The need to fix things, to protect people, to be the one who stops the disaster before it begins. But now there was another pull, stronger, quieter, more dangerous in its own way. Hours passed in a blur of code, analysis, and strategy. McGee slipped into his old rhythm with ease, fingers flying across the keyboard, mind piecing together digital breadcrumbs faster than anyone else in the room. This was where he belonged. Or at least, it used to be. "You're still the best at this," Knight said, watching him work. McGee gave a small smile. "Yeah, that's part of the problem." She tilted her head. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, then said quietly, "Every time I come back here, it gets harder to leave." Knight didn't respond right away. She didn't need to. They both understood. The moment of truth. The breakthrough came just after midnight. McGee found the access point, a hidden back door into the military's defense grid. The terrorists were preparing to launch a coordinated attack. They had the capability to shut down infrastructure, disrupt communications, even trigger weapons systems. Stopping them would require immediate action. Field action. Parker turned to him. "We need someone to go in, on site. You know the system better than anyone." McGee froze. There it was. The choice. Again. "I can guide you remotely," McGee said carefully. Parker shook his head. "It's not enough. We need you there." Silence filled the room. Torres looked at him. "You've done this 100 times, man." McGee nodded slowly. Yeah. And every time, I didn't have a family waiting for me at home. That hit harder than anything else. He stepped outside, the cool night air biting against his skin. His phone felt heavier than it should as he dialed. Delilah answered on the second ring. Hey, everything okay? McGee swallowed. Not exactly. He explained, carefully, without details, but enough for her to understand the weight of the situation. There was a long pause on the other end. Do you have to go? She asked softly. He closed his eyes. That was the question, wasn't it? Not can he go, not should he go, but does he have to? I don't know, he admitted. Another pause. Then Delilah said something that would stay with him forever. Tim, I fell in love with you because of who you are. Not just the agent, not just the hero, but the man who cares enough to make the hard choices. He let that sink in. You've already proven you can save the world, she continued. Now you have to decide what world you want to live in. Final decision. Back inside, the team was waiting. No one spoke as McGee walked in. They could see it in his face. The conflict, the weight, the answer forming. Parker stepped forward. We're out of time. McGee nodded. I know. He looked around the room, at the people who had been his family long before he ever had one at home. Torres, Knight, Parker, NCIS, his past. Then he took a breath. I'll help you, McGee said, but I'm not going into the field. Torres frowned. McGee? I can guide you, McGee continued firmly. Every step, every move. But I'm not the guy you send into danger anymore. Silence. Parker studied him for a moment, then nodded. All right, he said. We trust you. Relief and something else washed over McGee. Not guilt, not regret. Something stronger. Clarity. A new beginning. The operation was a success. With McGee directing from headquarters, the team managed to shut down the threat just in time. Lives were saved. Disaster was avoided. Just like always. But this time, it was different. As the adrenaline faded and the sun began to rise, McGee packed up his things. Heading out? Knight asked. He nodded. Yeah. Torres smirked. Don't get used to it. We'll drag you back in soon enough. McGee smiled. Maybe. But they all knew. Something had changed. Home. When McGee walked through the front door, the house was filled with morning light. Delilah looked up from the kitchen. Hey. Hey. No dramatic speeches, no big moments. Just home. The twins ran up to him, laughing, pulling him into their world of simple joy. And for the first time in a long time, McGee didn't feel torn. He had made his choice. Not to leave NCIS entirely, but to redefine it, to be present, to be there, to be more than just an agent. The end. Or something new? Later that night, as the house settled into quiet again, McGee sat with his laptop open. A message blinked on the screen. Consulting agent, remote operations. A new role, a new balance, a new life. He smiled, then closed the laptop. Because for now, he had somewhere more important to be. And for Timothy McGee, that made all the difference. The first week felt strange. Timothy McGee woke up at the same time as always, years of habit refusing to loosen their grip. But instead of rushing into the chaos of a case, he found himself standing in the kitchen, watching the sunrise stretch across the sky. No urgent calls, no field reports, no life or death countdown ticking in the background. Just quiet. At first, it felt wrong. "Dad, you're staring at the toaster again." McGee blinked, snapping back to reality as one of the twins giggled at him. "Am not," he said, though he clearly was. Delilah raised an eyebrow from across the room. "You used to stare at crime scenes like that." "Yeah," McGee replied, smirking slightly. "The toaster's less dangerous." But even as he joked, there was truth underneath. He wasn't used to this pace of life. Not yet. Every instinct in his body still expected the next emergency, the next problem only he could solve. His mind would wander, thinking about potential threats, unfinished cases, systems that could be vulnerable. It was hard to turn that part of himself off. And maybe he didn't need to. The first call back. It came 3 days later. Not a crisis, not an emergency, just a call. "Hey, McGee," Torres's voice crackled through the speaker. "Got a minute?" McGee leaned back in his chair, laptop already open. "Depends. Is this a you can ignore it minute or a drop everything minute?" Torres chuckled. "Somewhere in between." "All right. What do you need?" There was a pause, then, "We've got a situation. Not huge, but messy. Could use your brain." McGee felt that familiar spark, the one he thought he might lose. "Send me what you've got." Seconds later, files began to load onto his screen. Data streams, security logs, code fragments, and just like that, he was back in it. But this time, something was different. He wasn't running down hallways. He wasn't stepping into danger. He wasn't leaving his family behind. He was right where he needed to be. A new kind of agent. Hours passed as McGee worked through the problem, guiding Torres and Knight remotely. "Okay," McGee said through his headset, eyes scanning the code. "You're looking at the wrong entry point. There's a secondary access layer, hidden, but it's there." Knight's voice came through. "You're sure?" "Positive. It's subtle, but whoever built this wanted a fallback." Torres groaned. "Of course they did." McGee smiled. "Trust me. Follow that path." A few tense minutes later. "Got it," Knight said. "You were right." "Of course I was," McGee replied, unable to hide the satisfaction in his voice. Torres laughed. "Man, I hate when you're not here, but also love it." McGee leaned back, exhaling. This worked. This actually worked. The unexpected challenge. But not everything was so easy. Later that night, after the kids were asleep and the house had gone quiet, McGee found himself sitting alone, staring at his laptop again. The case was solved. The threat was contained. Everything was fine. So why didn't it feel complete? He rubbed his face, frustrated. For years, closure had come from action, from being there, from seeing the resolution firsthand, from knowing, without a doubt, that he had made the difference. Now there was distance, a screen, a voice, a delay. It was enough, but it wasn't the same. "You're thinking too much again," Delilah said softly from behind him. He glanced back. "Is it that obvious?" She smiled. "Only to me." McGee sighed. "I helped today, really helped, but it feels different." Delilah nodded, moving closer. "Because it is different. He looked at her. What if different isn't enough? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she placed a hand on his shoulder. Tim, different doesn't mean less. It just means you're growing. The test he didn't expect. A week later, the real test came. This time, the call was urgent. Parker's voice was tight. McGee, we've got a situation. Bigger than usual. McGee's stomach dropped. How big? Big enough that I'm asking again. The words hung in the air. Asking again. McGee knew what that meant. Field work. Risk. The old life calling him back. He glanced around the room. The quiet, the warmth, the life he had chosen. Then back at the screen. What do you need? He asked carefully. Parker didn't hesitate. We need you here. There it was, again. The choice. Facing the same crossroads. For a moment, McGee didn't speak. His mind raced, running through scenarios, outcomes, possibilities. He knew he could help more on site, knew his presence could make a difference. But at what cost? Tim, Parker pressed. McGee closed his eyes. This wasn't just about one case. It was about who he was now, who he wanted to be. When he opened his eyes again, his voice was steady. I'm not coming in. Silence. Then Parker said quietly, All right, then we do this your way. Proving himself again. This time, the stakes were higher, the pressure heavier. But McGee didn't hesitate. He worked faster, sharper, more focused than ever before, guiding the team through every step, anticipating problems before they happened, finding solutions no one else could see. It wasn't about proving he could still do the job. It was about proving he could do it differently, and still win. Hours later. It's done, Knight said, relief in her voice. Torres added, We couldn't have done it without you, man. McGee exhaled, tension leaving his body. You did the hard part, he said. Parker's voice came last. No, McGee, you did. Redefining what it means to be a hero. That night, as McGee sat with his family, something finally clicked. Being there didn't always mean being there. Being a hero didn't always mean running into danger. Sometimes, it meant knowing when not to. Sometimes, it meant choosing what matters most and finding a way to protect it and everything else. Delilah leaned against him. You okay? He smiled. Yeah, he said. I think I finally am. McGee looked at his laptop one last time before closing it for the night. Messages from the team. Updates. A quiet acknowledgement of what he had become. Not gone. Not replaced. Just changed. And maybe that was the point all along. This wasn't the end of Timothy McGee's story. It was the evolution of it. A new role. A new balance. A new definition of strength. And somewhere, deep down, he knew. The next time the call came, he'd be ready. Just not in the way anyone expected.